How to get warehouse automation right. Andrew Jackson is North America Business Development Manager with AutoStore. Hello, Andrew.
Nice to be here today, Rob.
Andrew, what's driving the decision to automate warehouses today?
Well, that's a kind of a loaded question, but I'll try and answer it.
Okay.
Really, what we saw after the response to COVID is now the learnings that are driving the response. We had a few reactionary responses to COVID where manpower became the primary driver. So ROI became set around manpower, but also the lack thereof required us to go out and look for technologies that were going to fill the gap. I call this a reactionary event in which folks went out in mass trying to find robots, automation, sorters, diverters, different types of storage systems, and throw them at the problem of not having enough bodies to be into the area. And that then started the trend that we see in logistics automation, where we are now focusing our ROI around the reduction of headcount, dispersion of full-time equivalents throughout the organization, because we're still not able to gather them. So yes, it's manpower. However, there is an overwhelming trend to not be affected by the next COVID-like event. So supply chains are starting to become more resilient by adding automation to their portfolio, which will allow them to be more versatile during times of strife, as we just emerged from.
Okay, so with these lessons in the bag, let's take a breath and take a fresh look at the whole issue of automation.
Yeah.
Where should a proper automation initiative begin today?
A problem statement. What is the challenge that your organization is currently facing? If it is finding labor in your area, is that labor skilled enough? Is there enough of it? And is it diversified enough? Meaning diversified across skill sets. So that's one of the primary drivers for logistics automation these days. However, reliability is actually not a second chair. It should be in the driver's seat along with that. Reliability in terms of if something goes down, I'm going to continue to run. Reliability in terms of having ultimate uptime as the primary driver for the efficiencies that come thereafter. So if I have an automation system that is constantly in gear, it's driving me forward. It's also track and tracing everything that I do and allowing me to find out where to do better in the future. That is an automation system I want to start looking at today because it solves the primary labor challenge. Yes. However, it gives me long-term benefits that I can't put a price tag on today as my efficiencies gain as I grow over time.
Okay, so who should be involved in this initiative, in this process? Who do you bring into the picture to help make the decision as to what the right automation is for you?
Well, there's a lot of different people in an organization that should be involved. Generally, when we start with a problem statement, what we're looking at is the ground game, the individual operations manager and site leaders that are actually noticing that there are some inefficiencies that we need to work with, or they're having a hard time hiring, staffing up, and keeping those people on the payroll. I want to touch on keeping them on a payroll here real quick.
Okay.
When you are looking at logistics automation from a labor and labor only perspective, you are beholden to that kind of cycle of they'll go across the street for $1. Whereas if you're looking at it from a labor and reliability perspective, then you can start gaining a synergy between how the people work and changing their automation structure, along with installing automation with them. So then we start seeing that really great word symbiosis, right? Where people are now doing better jobs more efficiently as a result of automation. It's not replacing them. So who should be involved? The operations manager and all the people in the ground game. They should involve their direct overseers and then those individuals involved in standardization within an organization. So it's really cool to throw automation at something, but maybe not, a little bit of that type over there and a little bit of this type over here, because then you don't gain any single points of competency with one automation system.
Yeah.
From there, executive leadership. Executive leadership needs to understand that the people on the ground met with the people in the middle and they all agree so that they can come together and understand that this will be that quick win that they're looking for, that game changer for their organization, but that they don't have to maybe get both of their feet wet in the mired down in the details.
Right. So even as you're thinking about the kind of system that you want, you should also be wrapping into that the idea of worker reskilling, as you say, and the new
Yes,
roles
sir.
that workers are going to not address that after the fact, so to speak.
Yes, sir. One of the things I'm really passionate about with automation is restructuring the perception that robots are coming to take our jobs.
Hmm.
This is just simply not the case. Robots are actually complementary devices. In certain cases, yes, they will replace a worker who's doing some sort of mundane task, but replace does not mean eradicate. That means that that full-time equivalent is now going to be skilled up to work alongside that robot. Maybe they're even going to be trained on its safety protocols and procedures, which allows them programming and interface skills. Maybe they're going to be trained on how to actually fix it, which allows them mechanical and electrical and engineering skills. So we're talking about retooling a workforce, and we've seen this in American society before. It's just now all of a sudden a machine's doing it rather than throwing a bunch of people at the problem. We get a little bit scared that people aren't going to be useful anymore, and
Yeah.
that couldn't be further from the case.
Okay, any automation initiative involves a certain amount of upfront investment, even if the ROI is going to realize itself somewhere down the line. At the same time, companies are under a lot of executive pressure to cut costs. How do they deal with that in the midst of wanting to implement the right automation?
What we saw in COVID was an immediate reaction to headcount, headcount, headcount. So
Hmm.
all ROI was calculated versus a manual operation with 43 people versus a automated operation that had 23 people. And then you could immediately do some napkin math and bang, there you've got your immediate cost savings. Since COVID, real estate's gone up, energy prices have gone up, everything has gone up, packaging prices, cardboard prices, every single little component within the system. So rather than looking solely at how many people can we retask or retrain within our organization, which is hiring problems. So let's step back and say, yes, that is still an issue. Let us instead look at the problem more holistically, right? What does real estate cost? If I can consolidate 4 clients into the same building using something like an automated storage and retrieval or a mini load or shuttle system or an A-frame, what then is the ROI from space saving versus the ROI from just simply shuffling around human assets and collateral, right?
Hmm.
That's something that we need to pay really close attention to moving forward. We see soft costs. What's the cost of turnover? How long does it take to train somebody? What's the actual cost on things like morale, that people aren't there from one week to the next, and folks aren't working together with colleagues anymore. They're working alongside with the next person that got hired, right? All
Yeah.
of these things are starting to be realized at this point, which I think is a nice light at the end of the horizon.
Yeah, good point. Because at the same time, you have these executive pressures to cut costs. The automation project is directly addressing those concerns, even
Right,
as you're having to spend that money up front. That's
right.
really interesting. Thank you so much, Andrew, for those great insights into how a warehouse can properly approach the issue of automation these days at a time when it's so necessary. I do want to take a moment, though, to ask you about AutoStore. Tell me about the company and where it fits into the picture.
AutoStore is a Norwegian-based automated storage and retrieval system, but we are based in a technology brand called Cube Storage. So what we're doing is taking the general goods that are usually stored on racks and shelving, and we're putting them into a highly dense cube storage system that allows us to take all that extra space that's wasted between shelves, in between boxes, all that extra space, especially those 9'6" aisles, right? We got to get those
Yeah.
forklifts up and down there. And we're actually making it more efficient. From there, what we're doing is we're taking robots and we're actually retrieving each one of those bins so that we're able to bring the goods directly to the person who needs to fulfill the order, rather than having people in mass going out into warehouses fetching, retrieving, and bringing back to process. It brings about efficiencies in terms of time management, space management, and also lines that you can do per day. So obviously throughput, but it also takes care of those other little boxes that people overlook, right? Energy. We are a very energy efficient solution. Our robots that don't use much more battery power than an actual vacuum cleaner. We are obviously saving all that space within your facility, but we're able to grow within that facility as well. So you can actually look at it as a modular and expandable automation system as part of your logistics automation.
Andrew Jackson of AutoStore, I want to thank you so much for joining me to talk about the issue of automating warehouses today, as well as telling me a little bit about AutoStore. Thanks very much for being with me.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.